Tunisia there, and it just reminded me of a book which I'm reading about Iraq actually, and that the Christians in Iraq, they've had over 1,500 years of living in Iraq in various towns in Iraq. In fact, the population of the Christians at the beginning of the 20th century was about 10-20%, and Jews were also a significant number of people living in Iraq, going back to Babylon. When the Jews were in Babylon, they actually moved all over the place, and their numbers grew, and also Christians. Well, the ancient Christian communities that were founded by some of the apostles, like Thomas and some other apostles, and today all those communities are being decimated by jihadists. Thousands of Christians have been killed, forced out of their homes, forced to go to other countries, and some Christians are afraid that these regions, which were once heavily populated by Christians, will be depopulated of Christians. The Christian testimony will get less and less important. And so we need to pray for what's going on in the Middle East, and a lot of politicians, if you read the media, they say nothing about what's going on there, but what really is going on there is a disaster beyond comprehension. And so we need to speak to our politicians, write to them, and tell them what's going on. They don't report this, and all you hear is about something going on in some country, but you don't really know the real disaster which is happening to the Christians of the Middle East. Today, there's only about 8 Jews left in Iraq, and at the beginning of the 20th century, there was about 30% of the population was Jewish, and so because of the founding of the state of Israel, they're all forced out. And so it's more of a disaster than you realize, and so we need to really pray for the people of the Middle East. All right, well, so, and in fact, a lot of people in the Middle East have had to find strength in the Lord, and you have to strengthen themselves in the Lord. Pastors over there, for instance, every day, they don't know if they'll come back alive. They may be executed, they might be kidnapped, or there might be a bomb that goes off and destroys a church. Hundreds of churches have been destroyed over there, so it's a real bad situation. So today I'd like to talk about strengthening yourself in the Lord. We're going to look at 2 passages from Samuel, and it involves David. And before we do that, though, I would like to sing this song because it's related. The theme of this chorus is related to what I'm going to talk about today. So Loretta's going to come and play. And
Of course.
and I think that you probably all have heard this before. Have you ever heard this song?
Maybe they know
You probably know it, right? This chorus?
it. Maybe.
Well, anyways, it's very simple. All these choruses are simple. You know, they come and go, but some of them are better than others. So this is a good one.
Just have to get used to it.
Is that familiar? Praise is rising, eyes are turning to you. We turn to you. Okay, so that's the theme that we want to develop today. All right, well, I think we all like to be comfortable, I should say. We have our comfort zones, and I think most of us would not like to be in the shoes of those poor erect Christians. We feel safe, we like to feel safe, we feel relaxed when we're in our comfort zone. But if you stay there too long, it's not good, because we may stagnate and stop growing. We need to step out and experience challenges. And life is not meant to be lived in a sheep pen. I think a lot of us would like to stay in a sheep pen. It's safe, we got all our other sheepy friends with us, and all that, and we get used to each other, and we don't like changes. But obstacles are meant to strengthen us. And so if you never have an obstacle in your life, then you're never challenged. In fact, hardships are things which help us grow spiritually. So hardships are good for us from time to time. You think of shepherds, they want to lead their sheep out into green pastures. You don't leave your shepherd or your sheep in the sheep pen hoping anything left to eat. But as you lead your sheep out of the to greener pastures, you might encounter lions and bears, as David did. And we're going to see what David did with these lions and bears in a minute. The greatest comfort and source of strength is a relationship with God. That's where we feel the safest. In times of difficulties and troubles, when we face obstacles, that's where we want to be. We want to be right beside God, with God. That's the safest place to be. So before afflictions, we need to prepare ourselves. During good times, develop a relationship with friends who can speak truth to you, who can lift you up and be with you. So we need to develop our relationship before the afflictions come, so that when they come, we have the strength to face them. And during afflictions, we need to be honest with God, about our thoughts, feelings. Turn to God, seek His favor, and always pray, and never leave His side. We tend to want to do that when we're afflicted. We tend to want to run away. But the safest place to be is where God is. Use Scripture and prayer to encourage and strengthen and build up your heart. Try to maintain a positive self-talk. So sometimes what happens is that in our minds, we start to have a negative sort of self-talk. You know what I mean by self-talk? If you listen to yourself, if you're quiet, you start to hear yourself talking to yourself. And sometimes you say good things about yourself, and sometimes you say bad things about yourself. And if you start believing those bad things you say about yourself, then that's just going to bring you down further. Right? And so we need to have a positive self-talk, even in the midst of struggles. We need to tell ourselves, look, this is difficult, but God is with me. I can handle this. So bring Him into life situations and keep short accounts with God so that our relationship remains vital. So, if there's sin in our lives, it cuts the communication lines between God and us. And so we need to keep short accounts, all right? Walk with Him on a daily basis and deal with those things those sins that so easily beset us. Well, let's see what happens in the life of David as he confronts Goliath. Now, Lord, I have something in that bag there. I forgot to bring it. Could you get that for me?
This?
No,
No,
this.
this.
Yeah, no, the other one.
No. Oh,
Isn't there
this.
something else?
Sorry.
That's fine. Grab bag of stuff.
Everything.
Yeah. So you'll find this in Samuel chapter 17. We're not going to read the whole thing. But I just want to say a little bit about what's going on here. The Philistines were in Judah. So they had invaded Judah. And the Philistines were nasty people. And we don't know exactly where they come from, but we think that they came from the sea. They came from some of the islands in the Aegean, perhaps. We're not certain. They could be kind of like a Greek kind of people. And Saul had done his forces against the Philistines. And there was a champion that came from the lines of the Philistines whose name was Goliath. and he was 9 feet tall, and a very scary person. Now can you imagine a person 9 feet tall? Think of the tallest basketball player. I can think of, remember that basketball player, M. Ball? He was about 7 foot something or other. That was tall. And actually M. Ball was a Christian. You know what he would do with his money? He would buy back Christians that were enslaved in the Sudan by Muslims, and he would pay the ransom money so he could buy back slaves in the Sudan. M. Ball, he's not playing anymore. But Goliath taunted God, and the Israelites, he says, your God is a puny God. Look, we got a big army here, and I'm big, and your God is puny. And so he taunted the Israelites, and this terrified the Israelites, and he would come forward, and the Israelites would run back and be terrified. This went on for 40 days. Okay, this obstacle to the Israelites was challenging them for 40 days. Think about hardships and obstacles. This was a tremendous obstacle. So David shunted back and forth from his father Jesse, where the sheep were. He shunted back and forth to the battle lines, and he would bring food to his brothers. Okay, so this is the situation. So let's see what's happening here. Now the Israelites had been saying, do you see this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage, and will exempt his family from taxes in Israel. Now if you don't want to pay taxes, this is a good way to, not to pay taxes, kill Goliath. But, if I was there, I would say, yes, I think I'll try that. David asked the men standing near him, what will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? So this is David speaking. And so he wants to hear it again. He wants to make sure that what he heard the first time was correct. They repeated to him what they had been saying and told him, this is what will be done for the man who kills Goliath. And then they repeated, all this is going to, you don't have to pay taxes. Saul will give you his daughter in marriage, and so forth. When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle. See, Eliab didn't have the same heart that David had. He thought of David as just a thrill seeker. You just want to come here and see the battle. And you've left those sheep out in the wilderness. That's all you want to do. And David says, now what have I done? Can't I speak? I'm just finding out the details here. Leave me alone. He then turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter. And the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul. And Saul sent for him. So, David was talking all this bravura, I'm going to get this Goliath, and so forth. And Saul hears this. David said to Saul, let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go out and fight him. So don't lose heart. Okay, be strong in the Lord. That's the only way we can be strong, in the Lord. Saul replied, you are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You're only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by the hair, struck it, and killed it. Now, David must have had some supernatural strength to be able to take a bear by the hair and kill it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. I don't know if you've ever seen lions when they kill their prey. It's not very nice. And bears, they can be very nasty. We used to have to take a rifle with us. I used to work in the bush in British Columbia. And we had all kinds of bears, grizzly bears, brown bears. Well, we didn't have brown bears, we had black bears. And so we had to take our rifle with us. We had cougars, and nasty little things too, cougars. We had to take our rifle with us to protect us from the bears, especially the bears. And they can be very vicious. Lions kill. They'll start eating the prey alive. Still not dead yet. Anyways, so David killed this lion with his bare hands. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of the Philistine. He's going to be the same. Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. This Philistine is just going to be like a lion or the bear. Doesn't matter if he's 9 feet tall, I'll get him. And of course, he did this with the sling. You read the story, we don't have time to read the whole story. So in those days, they were pretty good with slings. And so he got some stones from the river, nice smooth stones, and he shot a stone and struck the Philistine Goliath in the center of the forehead, and he collapsed stunned to the ground. Oops. Stunned to the ground. And then David took Goliath's sword and cut his head off. Kind of gruesome, but that's what it was like in those days. Of course, fortunately today we're living in the age of grace and the new covenant. And so, but these are stories that help us to grow spiritually. These are for our spiritual benefit. And so this obstacle Goliath, which was an affront to the armies of Israel, David slew because he was faithful to God, he trusted God, and he saw what God had done for him in the past. And so for him, this obstacle was no different than any other obstacle he had experienced in the past. So if we just review a little bit what we see here, of course Saul didn't think much of David, he's just a puny little guy. But David reminded Saul of his exploits. I killed the bear and the lion with my bare hands. Goliath is just going to be like one of these things, these fearsome creatures. In the hands of God, they're nothing. David's strength of character and physical power came from his faith in God. He constantly walked with God. And I think we've all read other portions of Scripture where David is described as a man after God's own heart. Okay, he was interested in the things of God, walked with God. And for him, knowing God was the most important thing in his life. Others saw in David a mere boy. After all, he wasn't a very old, he was a young boy at 12, maybe 13. So they just see in him a boy. And not much to offer. But God sees the heart. And oftentimes we don't look at the heart, the true nature of things. We look at the exterior things and we come to wrong conclusions. And we see that David did the totally unexpected. This little kid did things out of keeping with his own physical appearance and presence. So this little guy killed Goliath, which may have been 2 to 3 times bigger in every way than David. But David was led by the Lord. And so Goliath fell to David. So David's bravura, if you will, was a result of what God had done in the past. And he knows. He knows. He knows that God is with him and that he strengthened himself in God and you, that God would be with him again. And we can encourage ourselves by reminding ourselves of the things, the good things that God has done for us in the past, and that he will continue to do those same things as we walk with him and be concerned about his will and walk in his ways. And he will continue to work on our behalf as he's done in the past. Well, all right, so that's David and Goliath. Now we come to David and the Amalekites. Now the Amalekites, you may or may not know, but the Amalekites were also nasty people. But David had joined the Philistines to escape Saul. This is now 1 Samuel 30. And Saul was now after David because David developed a reputation. David killed his 10,000s and Saul only killed 1,000s, his thousands. Saul only killed thousands, David killed 10,000s. And so Saul was afraid that David would one day get the throne. And Saul fell out of favor with God because he failed to eradicate the Amalekites. And so, so this problem continues, and the Amalekites continue to attack Israel. And so in order to escape Saul, he joins forces with Achish, who was a Philistine chieftain. So this is, you can see that the Philistine area is basically, if you look there at the map, you can hardly see it, but Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gaza, Gerar, Eglon, Gath, Ekron. These are Philistine towns, and they control this. And Ziklag was in the area of Simeon, and this was the town that was attacked by the Amalekites. Now what David would do, though, he joined himself with this chieftain Achish, and what he would do, though, he would raid Philistine towns, and he would give the plunder to the Israelites. So that way he developed friendships and connections with the Israelites, so that when he would return, people would receive him. And so he would, unknown to the Philistines, he would raid these Philistine towns and give the plunder to the Israelites. The Philistine commanders, now they were going to war with Saul, and the Philistine commanders did not want David to be with them, because they remembered that they said of David, he killed his 10,000s and Saul only killed his thousands. So they didn't want David with him on this particular occasion. So the Philistine commanders ordered David back to Ziklag, and so they returned. But on their way back, in the meantime, the Amalekites had attacked Ziklag. And David and his men were not there. And so you see the ruins of Ziklag there. They're still there. You can go see them. And so the area, the Amalekite area, was as you see there in the map, that was the sort of Amalekite area. And these people were nasty people. And so the Amalekites raided the southern part of the Negev, where Ziklag was, and where David's, David's men and families were there. And so now we pick up the story in verse 30 of this chapter. Okay, this is okay. Good. All right, so by the way, the Amalekites and Edomites were descendants of Esau. They were nomadic and displayed unrelenting brutality to the Israelites for some reason. There's this connection between the two, and they're very brutal. Saul's failure to completely eradicate the Amalekites resulted in their continuous harassment of Israel. So let's pick up the story here. David and his men reached Ziklag on the third day. Now the Amalekites had raided the Negev and Ziklag. They had attacked Ziklag and burned it, and had taken captive the women and everyone else in it, both young and old. They killed none of them, but carried them off as they went on their way. When David and his men reached Ziklag, they found it destroyed by fire, and their wives and sons and daughters taken captive. So David and his men wept aloud until they had no strength left. David's two wives had been captured, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. David was greatly distressed because the men were talking of stoning him. Each one was bitter in spirit. because of his sons and daughters. But David found strength in the Lord. So David found strength in the Lord. And you remember the exploits that God had done with him in the past. And so he thought of that and said, well, this situation is difficult, but God can do something with this. Then David said to Abiathar the priest, the son of Ahimelech, bring me the ephod. Abiathar brought it to him, and David inquired of the Lord, shall I pursue this raiding party? Will I overtake them? Pursue them, he answered. You will certainly overtake them and succeed in the rescue. So the Amalekites were these desert raiders who lived by their plunder of poor innocent people. They waylaid the Israelites as they traveled in the desert to the land of Canaan. David and his men, upon returning to Ziklag, found it destroyed, and the women, the children, old men taken captive. They were deeply distressed, and they wept all day long. And you imagine weeping all day long. I can't even barely shed it here. But these people, they wept all day long. David lost his 2 wives, Ahinoam and Abigail. And David was particularly distressed because his men, out of bitterness of heart, were threatening to stone him. And David thought about this. He said, look, God has helped me thus far. Okay? And why wouldn't he help me now? So he finds strength in the Lord. And he prays, asking for God's direction. He did not assume victory. Okay? He didn't want to go ahead of God, but asked God, will I overtake them? Okay? He let God, give the answer. The Lord told him that he would. That he would rescue those that were kidnapped. And he did. So again, how did David find strength in the Lord? So in a difficult situation, you have all these men were bowing, soldiers, these fighters are all crying, and they were bitter, and they wanted to kill David, they're going to stone him. And David says, hey, look, this is difficult, but look what God has done for us. He's rescued me in the past, he's rescued us, he's helped me. Why shouldn't he help me now? So he turned to God and prayed. And God said, yes, go after them. You will overtake them. Well, one final passage that I'd like to look at for today is found in Hebrews chapter 12. We all know this passage. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Okay, so, we get into the sin, it entangles us, and then, it affects our run. It says, and let us run with perseverance the race set out, marked out for us. Okay, so what is this talking about, actually? The sin that easily entangles us. And it talks about this cloud of witnesses. When we think about Olympic Games, for instance, and there's all sorts of events. And one event was the broad jump, and what they would do